everyone, I'm Drew Goldfarb. Welcome to this edition of Betting for the Cycle, where we're giving you 4 picks for upcoming baseball games, matchups, or prop bets, and trying to go 4 for 4 to bet for the cycle. Here's how this works. I'm going to pose 4 potential wagers or daily fantasy comparisons. Our experts and I will each give you our picks and rank them based on how confident we are in the outcome. Least confident pick will be our single. Most confident pick will, of course, be the home run. We'll each have a pick that we consider to be a home run, a triple, a double, and a single each and every week, giving us a chance at betting for the cycle. Our individual stats are also going to be tracked all season long, and you'll be able to see those pop up on the screen as well throughout this episode and every episode to come. As always, I'm joined by Smith and Jim Beviglia. Everyone had a pretty solid week last week, I'd say, so we're going to have those numbers up as we go along. As for this week, we begin with a daily fantasy pick'em for Thursday between Jacob deGrom and Matthew Boyd. Which pitcher will have the better performance for daily fantasy on Thursday? Taylor, we begin with you.
So this is a little scary because Jacob deGrom, but I'm going to take Matt Boyd. It's going to be my double. The micro matchup favors Boyd. He's in Kansas City against the Royals, whereas deGrom is at home against the Cardinals. The Cardinals haven't hit as well as we would have expected this season, but it's still a pretty threatening lineup. Kansas City's 14th in the league in strikeout rate against lefties, whereas the Cardinals are 21st against righties. The Royals are also near the bottom in isolated power against lefties, and their park is conducive to pitching. Citi Field obviously is as well, but given the respective matchups, I'm going to take Boyd as my double.
Jim, where are you going?
Yeah, I can go with Boyd as well, and I'm actually going to make it my home run right off the bat. I feel like the key here, a lot of what Taylor mentioned, the Royals just don't hit lefties all that well. Cardinals have a more formidable lineup, but the big thing for me is that, for daily fantasy, a pitcher that gets a win over a pitcher that doesn't get a win is going to be big, and you've got Boyd going against Homer Bailey for Kansas City, who's been one of the starting pitchers for the last several years, whereas deGrom goes up against Jack Flaherty, who, while he hasn't had the best year this year, certainly a more formidable pitcher. So I think that all plays in the favor of Boyd, and I feel pretty good about that one. So that's going to be my home run.
I'm going to make it unanimous. I'm also going with Boyd, and like Taylor, I'm going to make my double for this week. The pitching matchup, as Jim was just saying, is for me is what really does it. It's to go up against Homer Bailey. The Royals are not a good team. It puts Boyd in a better position to get that win. Their K per 9 are very similar between the two for the year. Recent performances kind of similar. Boyd, that game is actually being played in Omaha. So an interesting ballpark, but yeah, very pitcher friendly. And especially when there's no aluminum bats being used. And then you've got deGrom going up against St. Louis, the Cardinals being the better opponent. I think it's more likely that Boyd ends up getting the win. I think that it's equally likely that the numbers are very similar, so that's kind of where I drew the line. I'm making it my double for the week, going with Boyd over deGrom. So that Tigers-Royals game, as I said, will be played in Omaha, Nebraska as a lead into the College World Series. So for question 2, let's do a college baseball pick. College World Series begins this weekend with the double elimination pool games. Of the 8 teams in Omaha, 2 of them will go 0-2 and be the first teams eliminated. So your task here is to name one of those 2 teams. Which team do you think will lose in round 1 and in the first elimination game, Jim?
I'm going to go with Louisville in this one just because, it comes down to the fact that they are playing Vanderbilt, who, as you're going to find out, I also like in this tournament. I think Vanderbilt's probably the best team. And so right off the bat, Louisville has the toughest matchup. And so therefore they have the best chance of playing in one of those elimination games. And, at that point, it's kind of a crapshoot, but the fact that they'll, I have a feeling that they'll almost definitely be in that game makes a big difference for me. Not too confident on either one of these because college baseball, it's one game at a time. Anything can happen in a baseball game. So my confidence level isn't great with these, but I'm going to go with Louisville as the first team out, and I'm going to make it my single.
All right. Interesting. I'm going on the same side of the bracket, that same little grouping. I'm going with Auburn. And I'm actually making it my home run pick. I considered going with Michigan because they're facing Texas Tech and then the loser of Florida State, Arkansas. But for me, the reason for this is that, and I'm going to get back to this series in a minute too. Going up against Mississippi State, I think, is a challenge. And then I think to face one of Vandy or Louisville in the second round is the more challenging proposition than facing Auburn in the second round. So that's where I went with that. The other thing too with Michigan again against Texas Tech is I'm more confident that Mississippi State will beat Auburn than I am that Texas Tech will beat Michigan, which is really the only reason, because I would think Florida State or Arkansas would knock out either of those teams in all likelihood. But I think it's more likely that Mississippi State beats Auburn, which is why I picked the Tigers to be my first team eliminated, and I've made that my home run. So, Taylor, Jim and I have each gone on that side of the bracket with different teams. Obviously, only one of them can be knocked out, or obviously Mississippi State or Vanderbilt as well. Which side are you going on? How confident are you in this pick?
I'm on the same page as Drew. This is my home run, and I'm taking Auburn. They're in the side of the bracket with 3 legit actual champion contenders. Louisville, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt are all at plus 800 or better to win the whole thing. Auburn just seems like the odd man out here. It's college baseball. I don't feel overly confident in it. But that said, I'm still making it my home run. And Auburn just seems like the obvious pick to me. So we'll see.
Well, it's a lot of tough picks to make this week. There are no easy ones to go with for the 4 that we've picked for this week. So pick number 3, another college baseball pick. College World Series Championship Series begins Monday, June 24th. One team will make it from each side of the bracket or each pool, and then those teams will square off in a best-of-3 series to determine the national champion. Our goal with this pick here is to name one of the 2 teams that will qualify for the national championship series. Who will win their side of the bracket? I'm going to go first, and my selection, which I'm making only my single because it is college baseball, is Mississippi State. And the reason for this is kind of what I was getting into before. Of the first round matchups, I am most confident that Mississippi State will beat Auburn. So at that point, Mississippi State is within 2 wins of qualifying for the national championship game. They are in a better position than any other team, in my opinion, for round 1, because I think they're facing the team most likely to be eliminated, at least as far as both Taylor and I would be hoping, based on our picks. So I went with them because I'm thinking that they're going to knock out Auburn, and then they're going to face either Vandy or Louisville in the second round, which both very talented teams in their own right. Mississippi State, as Taylor and I had gotten into in our College World Series preview video, is very good, near the top of the entire nation when it comes to pitching, to hitting, all of those categories. I think it's basically, if you view it as almost a toss-up between Mississippi State and the other side, it's only one toss-up game. Whereas if you pick Vandy or Louisville, in my opinion, you end up having 2 toss-up games, because you've got to win the first one against the other, and then you've got to beat Mississippi State in order to have that easier route to the national championship. Arkansas takes on Florida State in the first round. To me, that's a very difficult matchup. Also, I went to Florida State, so full disclosure, trying to stay away from picking on them entirely. Texas Tech has an easy route in the first round, but then they're facing Arkansas or Florida State. And I don't think that that's an easier task by any means. So Taylor, we'll go to you. How confident are you in this pick, and who do you see picking one team to lock into the national championship series?
Not confident, which is why it's my single. I'm going with Arkansas here. They're on the easier side in bracket 1. They have 2 number 3 seeds in Florida State and Michigan on their side of the bracket, and then a Texas Tech team that's pretty much all offense. If their pitching manages to shut down those hot-hitting bats, I feel like Texas Tech doesn't really have the pitching to get through. The other side of the bracket just looks like a bloodbath to me. You've laid out a good case for Michigan or Mississippi State, but I'm just going to take what I think is the easier road. Arkansas was in the championship round last year. They have some experience, so I'll go with the Hogs here as my single.
Jim, round us out. We've obviously got 2 separate teams, so how confident, and who's your pick?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Vanderbilt. I'm going with the Chalk. They were the most impressive team, I feel like, in the Super Regionals. They won the SEC. I mean, you could see by who's in the College World Series how good the SEC was. 4 out of the 8 teams from the tournament are in the SEC. They won the regular season. They won the conference tournament. They just obliterated Duke in the Super Regionals. I mean, they seem the best competition. Tougher road, but I just feel like all things considered, they might be the best team. And so I'm going to go with them, and I'm going to make them my double pick. Vanderbilt is a double.
Vanderbilt as the double. So last one to complete the cycle. Back to the majors in a series pick this time. The Atlanta Braves and Philadelphia Phillies are locked in a battle atop the NL East. And when I say locked, as of this recording, the teams are tied for first in the division. This weekend, they play a 3-game series in Atlanta. So which team comes away with the series win, Taylor?
So looking ahead, I see projected starters for the Phillies: Nick Pivetta, Aaron Nola, and then Sunday, I believe it's unannounced as of yet. The Braves have Sean Newcomb coming up from the minors, Max Fried, and Mike Foltynewicz. I don't love those pitchers for the Braves. They've all had their struggles so far this season, but they're at home. Philly hasn't been as good with the bats as I thought they might be, considering the offseason they had, but Pivetta has also spent time in the minors. Nola hasn't quite looked himself this season. Obviously, it's hard to predict with no starting pitcher announced for Sunday, but I slightly favor the Braves here. They've been swinging the bats well lately. They've been crushing the Pirates the last couple nights. So I'll take the Braves as my triple.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Phillies in this one. This was a difficult pick, but I'm actually going to make it my triple just because I'm not that confident about the college baseball series. In this series, I think the pitching matchups, I know Taylor talked about the Braves maybe having the edge, but I feel like the Phillies might have the edge here. You've got Nick Pivetta, who, since he came back from the minor leagues, has been pitching brilliantly. He's a streaky pitcher. You've got Nola, who has not been himself this year, but still a little bit more experienced than what the Braves have going against him. And then maybe a bullpen game, maybe Jared Eichhoff in the final game. But the Braves, on the other hand, Max Fried started real well, has not been pitching better lately. Sean Newcomb probably pitches Saturday, but he's been in the bullpen and he's not stretched out. And then Sunday, Mike Foltynewicz has struggled as well. So overall, I feel like the Phillies have that edge. It worries me that the series is at Atlanta. Both teams can hit. I'm going to go with the Phillies, and I'm going to make it my triple pick.
So I get to be the tiebreaker here. I'm also making a triple, so we're going across the board on the triples, and I'm going to pick Atlanta. They are the home team, which is a nice advantage. You guys were going through the pitching matchup. So what I would point out is their records recently. Philadelphia has basically been a 500 team in the month of June. Atlanta now 8-2 through Tuesday's night's games. They have been very good, and yeah, they've been playing Pittsburgh, beating up on the Pirates. But I think it's Atlanta. They're at home. They've been the hotter team of late. I think that, to see them take 2 of 3 is possible. And, we could end up with who knows, weather in Atlanta. You could end up with a rain out and a 1-1 split, and we all get an intentional walk for the week. So that's also possible. But, I'm picking the Braves. I went back and forth on it, but just because of the nature of how difficult all of these picks have been this week, I'm making that one my triple. So before we wrap up, we're checking back in on our World Series picks. No one switched a team last week. 2 weeks ago, I grabbed the matchup of the Philadelphia Phillies at plus 420 to win the NL and the Boston Red Sox at plus 550 to win the AL. Still no movement on either of those lines, and I'm sticking with them despite Andrew McCutchen's injury a week ago. Also, despite picking against Philadelphia this weekend against the Braves. Taylor, you still have the Astros and Dodgers locked in. The Astros moved from plus 140 to plus 130, so you got value with your pick there. The Dodgers still at plus 130 after you originally locked them in at plus 170. So any changes that you want to make to your World Series predictions?
I'm going to stick with it. It's kind of amazing that the Astros have seen their line move considering how many injuries they have right now, but they've been getting it done. They called up Yordan Alvarez, and he's hit 2 homers in 2 games, and there's just like an endless supply of talent on both of these teams. So I feel pretty good about it, and I'll stick with it.
All right, Jim, you locked in the Yankees and Dodgers. Already went over LA's movement. The Yankees went from plus 230 to plus 220 odds a week ago and stay at plus 220 odds this week. So you got in ahead of the shift. Any changes that you'd like to make, though?
Yeah, I was tempted this week because, the Braves picking up Keuchel is a big thing. I think that really makes them a little bit more of a competitor. And I also think, the Astros committing to call up Alvarez. I mean, if he is as good as advertised, that's another big thing in their favor. But I'm going to stick with the Yankees and Dodgers. I still feel that the depth is there in terms of starting pitching, in terms of lineup for both teams. And, again, the Yankees still quite aren't healthy. And when they get everybody back, I think they probably have the most formidable lineup, even more formidable than Houston. And I think the Dodgers, the experience that they've been there before and just so much depth, I still feel like these are the two teams we're going to see come October.
All right, well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Betting for the Cycle. Be sure to check back next week, where we'll show you the stats of how we did and give you our latest picks. For Jim Beviglia and Taylor Smith, I'm Drew Goldfarb. Thanks for watching. See you next time.